Alright, so hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today we're gonna take a quick look at the final art gun for now Soma's big sister, the Phaedra. Now, just like with most of the other art guns, you get the blueprint for the Phaedra from the market for 35,000 credits, and to build the weapon you have to put together 45,000 credits, the Phaedra barrel, receiver and stock, as well as 2 tellurium. The barrel for the Phaedra is sold by the Arbiters of Hexis, the receiver is sold by the Parent Sequence, and finally the stock is sold by New Loka. When it comes to the stats of the Phaedra, they're once again different based on whether you use it in Archwing mode or you call it down in Atmosphere via a Gravimag, but in Archwing mode the weapon will do 45 damage with each shot, split between 11.25 as impact, 29.25 as puncture, and 4.5 as slash. It comes with an okay-ish 10% crit chance, a standard 2x crit multiplier, and a 25% status chance, which is pretty good. Now the Phaedra does have a bit of a spool up time, so the fire rate isn't at its maximum when you first start firing, but it will reach maximum fire rate after about 1 second, and at that point it will fire up to 18.75 rounds per second. It also recharges 50 rounds per second, which is very fast, and it has a max size of 250. Now, one pretty big downside of the Phaedra in Archwing mode is that the weapon is extremely inaccurate. You can see the shots fly all over the place, which makes it really hard to hit enemies that are far away from you, which happens fairly often in Archwing mode. But the really weird thing about this is that this does not happen in Atmosphere, because while the first few shots will sort of fly off to the side as the weapon is spooling up, it's extremely accurate once it's fully spooled up. And the increase in accuracy isn't the only benefit the weapon gets when you call it down in Atmosphere, because the damage will also go up to 56.4, split between 14 as impact, 36.4 as puncture, and 6 as slash. The crit chance is also bumped up a little bit, up to 14%, though the crit multiplier stays at 2 times, and the status chance gets 5 extra percent on top of the 25 for a grand total of 30. And the rest is fairly similar. The weapon can still fire up to 18.75 rounds per second once it's fully spooled up, though since it's using a more standard ammo mechanic, it now gains a 2-second reload time with a 250 round magazine and 960 spare rounds. Now I'm once again using just a very basic build, which on the Phaedra requires 2 Forma, both of which are AV, though I was playing around with Quasar Drill instead of Automatic Trigger, but Automatic Trigger is just a lot better. So I'm once again running Rubido Line Barrel for damage, Dual Rands for multi-shot, Parallax Scope for crit chance, Hollow Bullet for crit damage, and then the Automatic Trigger that's 1 rank from the top to save on Forma. And this is actually really great both for the raw DPS it adds during the Profit Taker fight, but also for Archwing, where you're just firing so many rounds per second, you are far more likely to hit distant targets. And we top it all off once again with Polar Magazine for cold and combustion rounds with Electrified Barrel for radiation. Though once again, if you want the weapon for atmospheric use and just use it in normal missions, corrosive and heat is going to be far better than radiation and cold. And it would also be a good idea, if you just want to use it in normal missions, to use dual stat mode, so you bring up the status chance up a little bit as well. Now, even though the weapon doesn't have the best crit chance, which is something I was a little bit afraid of, the weapon is absolutely mental when it comes to atmospheric performance, especially if you can keep the crosshair on the enemy's weak point, which, you know, most of the time is going to be the enemy's head, and you can headshot them like 30 times a second. This weapon is truly something when you get it fully spooled up in Atmosphere, though it does require good trigger discipline, because if all you do is just hold down the fire button, you're going to be out of ammo in no time. And that's pretty much my only complaint when it comes to using the Phaedra in Atmosphere, the fact that you just run out of ammo too fast. I would love to run around with this for a little bit longer, it's awesome. And I think that's enough about that, so how does the Phaedra perform against the Profit Taker?
Focus your Archwing weapons on the orb. Compromise the exoskeleton of the legs, and then work your way to the torso.
Well, it's not too bad, but unfortunately the lack of crit means that it comes nowhere near the Imperator Vandal, which is still, in my opinion, the best one. And from my experience, it's about as fast as a 0 Forma Imperator, believe it or not, because what a lot of people don't realize is that the standard Imperator, even with a 0 Forma setup, just a potato and some decent mods, can trash the Profit Taker pretty fast. So it's not really worth building just for the Profit Taker orb, because you're better off just using the standard Imperator. But let's not fuck around with that too much, because that is a subject for another video. So all in all, the conclusion on the Phaedra is a little bit more complicated than with the other art guns, because when it comes to Archwing, it feels pretty bad in the more open maps, like the one you can see right now, because the enemies are generally farther away from you and the low accuracy kind of hurts in that situation. But if you do something like Salacia or another mission where you have far more corridors, it feels pretty good. And while it's not amazing against the Profit Taker, it's still pretty decent. It's definitely in the upper tiers of art guns to be taken against the Profit Taker, and it feels amazing to just use in normal missions. I don't know why, it just feels better than the Imperator, even though they're fairly similar. So the decision on whether or not you want to build this one is very much up to you, and I hope I provided enough information to help you with that decision. Though once again, one thing to bear in mind here is that the weapon has really good status stats, and that might become a lot more useful later down the line. And that's pretty much all I have to say about the Phaedra, so I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video and the series in general, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.
Sons and daughters, I, the heart of who we are, making peace to build a future, strong, united, working till we fall.